Hello, welcome to my podcast. Glad you're here. Today, I'd like to talk to you about an event which I recently attended, and it had a major impact on my sort of just what I observed in my thinking about bass education and bass playing, and being in a bass community. The event was in Brooklyn. It was called the Brooklyn Bass Contest, and it was attended by there were 14 actual members in the bass players who competed for prizes, and I would say an audience of it was 3 or 4 hours long, so at any one time about 40 to 50 people. I would say coming and going, probably another 20-25 people overall. But what really struck me was some of the attendees and maybe even the audience members who were pretty much all bass players and their friends, how they really reacted or didn't react. Let me tell you just a little bit about my sort of involvement first. I was a friend of, acquaintance of Phil Jones and his sort of number one man, Michael Obranda, and they wanted to put a poster on my website to advertise it. And I said, man, I'd sure like to come down and play. And Michael said, well, why don't you just, send one of those audition tapes and maybe you could be a part of the contest. And I said, man, aren't I too old? And he said, oh, no, we'll take anybody. We love you playing. So I did that, and I went down there. And what I was excited about most, I mean, of course, the competition here, all the players was fun, but I was excited about just being around a bunch of bass players who were there to watch very attentively other bass players and just a chance to perform or to be involved in a situation where all eyes are on the stage looking at the bass player. I grew up, a long time ago. I was born at a very early age, by the way. And most of the time when I was growing up and in a lot of the gigs that I did many years ago, everybody was very attentive and, and paying attention to every single note that everybody played. And today I've just been a little bit tired of gigs that are pretty noisy and we have to quiet down because the ball game's on and stuff. So it was a captive audience, so to speak, and that's what I knew exactly was going to be. So that's why I attended. It was fun, too. But anyway, so I took two of my students. They actually drove and helped, to help take care of me, Asa and Michael. Excuse me. And we headed off to Brooklyn. Of course, we stopped on the way coming from New Hampshire. We stopped on the famous Rains Deli down in Connecticut. Oh, my goodness, has that place ever happened if you get a chance to visit it. Anyway, so we get into Brooklyn, and we get there at 5 o'clock-ish, which they asked us to, and the event actually started at 7. But, we got there to hang with the other bass players and be in the environment. The place was wonderful. It was called, the Guitar Shop NYC. Yeah, and they had lots of beautiful basses and guitars. Not a music store, a bona fide guitar shop, just the instruments. And they had instruments there by local makers, some local makers who were guys who just actually worked in the shop. And, it's a boutique shop is what it was. So we met a bunch of the people and saw a bunch of people warming up, hanging out. I tried out the amplifiers, fell in love with one of the Phil Jones amps. He was a big sponsor of the company, him and Labella. Of the event. They were sponsors of it. And so the thing started, and the first, a couple of people played, and again, it was very attentive. People were watching, hanging on every note, and that's why I was there. I like that kind of environment. I met some old friends and some new friends, made some new friends. It was real cool. And Michael and Asa were totally into it, so I was glad they were with me. Of course, it was fun to talk with Phil Jones and Michael Albrunda again. But anyway, so they're playing and they were doing, they're doing their presentations. It was a 5-minute presentation by each person. You had to audition, and apparently there were over 50 people auditioned, and they narrowed it down to 14 contestants. And so everybody had to play or was allowed to play do a 5-minute presentation. I had, of course, practiced mine before, and I was ready to do it too. So what I observed, just really started me thinking was, after 4 or 5 people played, the first thing was some of the people were leaving. And I recognized it was some of the people who were, performing and their friends particularly, they split. So I'm going, hold it. Don't you understand? Like the biggest benefit isn't you playing. You're going to play what you already know. The biggest benefit for you is to hear everyone else and to, take that in and learn from it. So that was a major point. I thought a lot about it. Today, I swear, everybody's just a little too much into their own thing and consequently they seem to be cut off from the influences of other good things. I'm not talking about bad influences. I'm talking about hearing people play the bass, and whether they're better or worse than you can learn a lot from it. A lot from just watching their playing, a lot from watching how the audience responds and how the other bass players respond. That's just a big absorbing environment. And of course, some of the people were into that big time. You could tell that they were taking it all in, but some folks just seem like, hey, I'm here for me and I'm gone. And that's really sad, I believe. Not just sad because, they sort of blew off the event once they did, quote, their thing, was they really cut themselves out of some great exposure and perhaps even making a new friend or two, huh? So we kept going on, and again, some of the players were better or worse than others, but that wasn't the issue. The point is that everybody who stayed, who wasn't leaving, was really into the spirit of, man, we want to see people shine, do their thing, share what they can do with each other, and then we appreciate it. We should be able to see someone else, again, who plays maybe much better or worse than yourself, and what they went through to get to that point. Not just, or including years of practice probably, but also, just the courage to go do it and stand up on stage. And, you look at the list of the players who are going to participate, and obviously some of them recognized some of the other players and might have gone, oh my goodness, those guys are better than me. And, whatever, that kind of thing. And I also noticed this, which was just amazing to me. There was a handful, I don't know, I don't know who, by the way, I didn't know very many people. I'm from New Hampshire. And there was a little bit of a clique of people who knew each other, knew most of the people. And there were a handful of guys who seemed to be walking around as, quote, the local heavies. And I didn't know if they were going to participate or not, and I just shook hands with anybody who was there. I'd start up a conversation with anybody who looked like they had a bass or wanted to have one. And some of these guys looked like sort of, the heavy cats who were there, doing all the talking and sort of advising other people and that kind of stuff. And I noticed that the majority of those guys, at least 3 or 4 or 5 of them, they actually left before the thing even started. I think they kind of came in to, walk around and be heavy and go, hey, man, I'll be on the scene, but they were somehow too cool or too heavy or whatever to actually stick around and watch. Maybe they all had really important gigs. I hope so. But I had more of a feeling of like, hey, you guys, you little guys have fun, and, I got to run, I don't need this kind of stuff. And I was shocked by that. Quite frankly, I was shocked that there weren't more bass players there that I perhaps knew. What I mean by that is I know a number of players in New York City who are outstanding musicians. And I think maybe some of them just considered this a little beneath them. Well, it was their loss. And I'm not talking about because of the level of musicianship displayed in performance. That was good, by the way. But I'm just talking about, my God, the chance to hang around with other bass players. And I'm not talking about, getting together with your buddy and drinking a bunch of beer and, watching a ball game or something. I'm talking about this was a public event where people got on stage. They had the courage to do that. They had their music prepared, all that kind of stuff, and they performed. Again, it was a bass player, forum. I was just surprised that a bunch more people, didn't recognize that and go, oh my goodness, that would be a really cool thing to do, to watch, to be a part of, perform, not perform, just support people. And I was disappointed. Again, not in anyone personally, but the fact that our bass community did not rally around this event, which could have been a lot more beneficial, could have been beneficial for a lot more people if they just simply chose to take the time to be there. So let's move on. Hearing the other people play was an unbelievable treat, of course. All different styles. One of the things I thought was really cool was that there were no restrictions on what you could do as far as like what you could play and what accompaniment you could use. Sometimes I've seen those where there's been just too many restrictions, but this one was, use any looper or any recording or any kind of thing you want, use 3 basses or whatever you want, any style. And it was really cool to see the different presentations that happened. And the judges, my goodness, good people, good players. I can't name all their names, but you can look online and see it if you want. Just type in that Brooklyn Bass Contest thing and you'll see it all over Facebook. but they were very serious. I could tell they were all top cats. I knew most of them. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I had recognized most of them. Not being from that area, I didn't personally know any of them. But they were very focused, very attentive, and they did their jobs. They were very appreciative and very, they paid attention big time. They took it serious. And as the night went on, it was just great because we'd see player after player. And sometimes I'd walk them back in the little sort of green room where guys were warming up and some were scared to death, of course, and others were like, man, I'm going to go kill them. And that's fun. It was good to see. But what it really helped me do, or from my eyes, being a professional and a player for, 50 years, it allowed me to recognize a lot of the different stages that musicians go through, trying to learn, trying to become better, and then, putting their stuff out there in front of other people. And again, I'm not talking about the guy who can just play two notes and, makes a little video in his bedroom and puts it up on YouTube and waits to be heavy. No, I'm talking about these people actually, performed in front of a crowd of 50, 60 musicians, 99% of them bass players. There were a few fans, of course. One guy would play and, his girlfriend and his mother would scream and yell and go crazy. And we all laughed about that too, which that's fun, good support. But in general, all the musicians in the audience, including me, man, I was hanging on every note everybody was playing. And I consider that unbelievably just really, really valuable experience. Now, from the point of, I was looking at it too through the eyes, I was trying to, and I did, of some of the participants. So let's just, sort of pretend here, assume, here's this 26-year-old or, 20, whatever, just youngish, 23-year-old bass player who is not a bona fide professional yet, but, who can play. And he was here, or she was here, because there were girls performing too. She was here to, to not only show her stuff, but should have been there to pay attention and learn some things. And that didn't happen. I mean, maybe some people learned a lot just by watching. They went home and boy, they grew. But what I didn't see was that camaraderie of like, my goodness, you sounded great. How did you do this? Can you show me that? How would I learn to do this? I've always wanted to learn to do this. There was just none of that there. Maybe it was, perhaps me who was the oddball because I've been an educator and performer so long. I was a student, sort of still am. Man, I'm always wanting to know what guys are doing. I actually asked one guy, I went up and talked to him a whole bunch about, man, how'd you do this and what'd you do that? And it was really cool. I re-met a student of mine from, 1995-ish, years ago. I taught him, and we hooked up and talked about a bunch of stuff. But I think a number of people missed the opportunity to gain valuable insight and information from other players. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about, you have to be fake and just because somebody plays, you go up and say, boy, you're incredible and I want to be like you. No, there were better players than others. But I didn't see anyone asking any of the other players or saying, man, I liked them. Of course, everybody complimented each other socially. That was great. Next. But I just didn't see that genuine interaction of people saying, man, how do I do this? I want that to rub off on me. And I was shocked. I was really shocked. I know that Michael Obranda, he was an incredible host, and he was totally into everybody's playing. I have no idea what he talked to, but he told me he was into my playing, and Phil too. Phil came up and was just like, oh my gosh, and he made compliments and asked questions and made observations that like I would have just thought everyone would. Maybe people need to be taught that these days. Truthfully, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's just a social issue. People are afraid. They're afraid of putting themselves out there, maybe being heard or being criticized or, if I ask a question, I'll look like the guy who doesn't know. It's like, come on. There's no learning if we don't admit we don't know. Or actually, you don't even have to admit you don't know. Just be attentive, get in the front row and ask questions. Secondly, I was thinking of the people who were not these youngish new people, but people who were adults who were performers and good performers in their own right, but they weren't professional musicians. They have a day job, and there's not a darn thing wrong with that, but I could tell some of these guys were going, man, I wish I had more gigs. Simple as that. And those people, my goodness, more than even the youngish student people, I thought they would have been all over the more professional players at this event talking to them, trying to get pointers, trying to say, man, what did you do to get more gigs? What can I do to do this? How would you recommend I do this? Maybe, again, I don't know if it's just me, but I've done that all my life. And that's how I learned stuff. That's how I climbed many ladders. I learned to play pretty well. But more than that, I became very successful in the fact that I always had gigs, man, all my life until I, taught for 30 years at Berkeley full time. But for 25 years before that, man, I made my living working gigs. So I was always watching guys, excuse me, meeting them and saying, man, how can I do what you're doing? What do you recommend here? You saw me play. That was something which I thought was odd. Maybe it happened and I didn't see it, but I just didn't see anyone say, man, can you critique my performance? I didn't run around and ask people, but I invited people. I said, hey, Phil, what'd you think? And he'd tell me all sorts of stuff and cool. Now, again, I wasn't fishing for comments, but guys, bass players have a brotherhood that in general we want to help each other. But again, I felt like we were it was a little closed there. And as the night went on, it was interesting, the same phenomena as after the first 2 or 3 players. Guys would play, like after number 8, 9, and 10 in the 14 people list, it seemed like there'd be a whole new turnover. All of a sudden, 2 or 3 guys and 6 or 8 of his friends would just the door would be real quiet and they'd sneak out. And again, I thought that same thing of like, my God, man, you're missing the boat. But, here I am sort of whining and, complaining. Don't mean to be doing that. What it was it made me reevaluate and think about the students I have in my community and the professionals, the comrades in my community and how we need to foster that learning. I saw, skip that. Back to exactly where we were. What it was is that just made me go off on a tangent with my mind and think about a bunch of other things, which, I have a little, just a little one track, like little train mind. If I'm not careful, it falls off the track and I have to start over again with, hi, I'm Jim, and, let's do it again. So I need to keep focused here. And then again, as we went on in the evening, and some of the players, were just fabulous, and all of them were good, but some were just stuck out. Let me back up and say it another way. Let me say it right here. Some of the crowd reaction was, my God, this guy's incredible. We all love him, and everybody clapped, and that probably was a bunch of his friends and stuff. But then when we finished the night, and the judges spent quite a while deliberating and came out with, first, second, third, and fourth place. Not so much right there, but the sort of the fallout in the hour that hang afterwards. And in the next, here was a big one, in the next day or 2 or 3 on Facebook. I mean, I was friended, 40 new friends after that because I met a bunch of people I didn't know. So I kept getting little notices, of such and such made a comment on this guy's a page, which I hadn't known him before the contest. And I tried to be friends with him. I wanted to make an acquaintance with him. And then on Facebook, we became friends. There was an unbelievable amount of fallout of, oh man, you should have won, Charlie, because I saw all those other guys and you were by far better. And I thought about those guys and I felt even, more sad for those guys thinking, buddy, I know you like your friends playing and he should have won, but why didn't you like check out some of the other guys and go talk to them and say, man, same thing. Your playing was kind of cool. I know we all like what we like and we like our friends best, but there was just a lot of missed opportunity for people to grow, perhaps just open their minds, grow in their minds and look at some other players and other styles and, and wonder and ask about, what's going on here and what are you learning and what can I learn and how did you do that? It wasn't the criticism so much of like, oh, those other guys sucked and you were the best. No, it was an implication. By the way, let me step back up. When people, musicians, anybody, by his friends, his peers, are fed that you're the best, everybody else sucks, that's an absolute, like shoot yourself in the foot, man. They cripple those people, and because those people go, oh, okay, so I'm better than everybody, huh? And I hate to say it, but that happens, and that just blinds the individual from looking at other things and learning from them. Let me just say one thing here, real plain. Just because I've been playing the bass 50 years, teaching forever, written lots of books, I was a professional musician for a long time, I hope this is not just me saying, boy, I wish everybody had come up and said, Jim, you're the best, I want to be like you. No, I really didn't expect that. And looking through not just my eyes, but trying to look and see it through a bunch of other eyes, I just didn't see people there with open minds. And I think you all know, don't you? The mind is like a parachute. It does not work if it isn't open. Well, it's the same with learning and developing, becoming a better musician, a better player. If you're not totally absorbing the things around you, well, you're just not going to grow any. Anytime a student of mine says, man, I'm just not motivated, I just can't think of any new licks to play, or I can't force myself to practice, the answer always is that I give them, and that is, well, tell me what the record is you listened to yesterday. Tell me what new music you've listened to, or just simply tell me what music you're listening to. And if they go, oh, well, I watch YouTube all the time. No. I'm talking about what bass player on what song, and critically tell me about what you heard. If you start listening to great music regularly, oh my God, the inspiration will just skyrocket. You'll have all sorts of things you want to learn and do. I just recently went through a little phase of that with a student of mine who's been sort of frustrated and sort of stuck and, practice block or player's block, whatever you want to call it. And I got him into listening to some stuff, and it wasn't new. It was old, real old stuff that he hadn't heard. And he's totally motivated again, just because most of us who are in music, we love the sound of good music. And if we'll take the time to critically listen and get into it, man, it inspires us. It makes us feel like we want to do it. We can do it. And that, I felt like, didn't happen a bunch at that bass competition. The bass competition itself was wonderful, man. Everybody was excited, having fun, all that kind of stuff. But there was a lot of opportunity missed, I think, just because some people had their minds closed. So this whole talk is really just my observation of, my goodness, folks, let's get fired up about each other, about everybody's playing, and not because we're trying to smooch up to them, but no, because, man, if we get into listening to some other people's playing, it will affect and inspire ours. Simple as that. Fired up. Hope this helps a little.